welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get behind the burnt orange curtain. Get back to some of these Sark comments. They were really interesting. What he had to say about just the team, and everything was, I think, optimistic, and everybody was, I think, really positive. So not anything negative. But I thought it was interesting what he said about the DBs because, of course, he was asked about the DBs because Longhorn fans watched the spring game and were like, Sark. What about them DBs out there? A little concerned about that, right? Longhorn fans are always looking at what's going to keep them from winning a national title. I've been around Longhorn fans long enough. Hey, they're always thinking about national title, so they basically start at that point, and it's like, all right, so what's going to stop us from winning a national title this year? And now that checklist used to be really long. Now it's like one or two things on that checklist. And Longhorn fans, yes, they're gonna harp on those one or two things. Sorry, so Sark's probably like, why the hell are y'all worried about these one or two things? We're an awesome team. It's like, yeah, but we're worried about the one or two things that are gonna keep us from winning a national title. Like last season, right? You were really close, but they were like one or two things that kept you from winning a national title. And the secondary was one of them. So that's why Sark Longhorn fans are worried about it. That's just the nature of Longhorn fans. All right. They're good. They're really intelligent football fans. So they're always looking at it from that point of view. But this is what he said about the secondary. Here's shout out to Inside Texas because they're the ones who I got this quote from. Steve Sarkisian on the secondary. We're going to be just fine in the secondary. I think we got a lot of versatility back there. He went on to say, I saw Kelvin Banks get beat too. He's going to be just fine. We're going to be just fine at cornerback. I got that from my man Eric Henry over at Horns 24/7. So he says, yeah, basically he says that they're going to be fine. He said our defensive backfield is probably the most versatile as we've had in my time here, and probably the most talented defensive backfield that we've had in our time here. Okay, so here's how I psychoanalyze Sark's comments, because he's right, by the way. Haven't I been telling you guys word of the offseason? Versatility, right? He's big on versatility, which is smart. It's gonna offer him more solutions to problems. If you're you're gonna manufacture depth, right? You got Jade Barron who can play any position in secondary. Makuba can play any position in secondary. Gilbo can play nickel and can play corner for you. That versatility is going to manufacture depth, which, by the way, you already need because you lost Terrence Brooks starting corners. You already need that flexibility of, all right, how can I get my best five on the field? And can I move some of these pieces around to be flexible enough to get my best five players in the secondary on the field? That's why you want more versatility. Also, versatility gives you more malleability defensively, less rigidity. The more rigid your defense is, the more rules you have to kind of bind the structural integrity of it. And all great offensive minds like Sark have to do is figure out the rules of that defense, and you can do that with different personnel groupings and different formations and pre-snap shifts and movement. And when you do figure out what the rules are, that in this coverage against this formation, this personnel grouping, that they always have this rule that applies, you can be an habitual line stepper, and then you can violate those rules over and over and over again. But less rigidity means more. It's less. If you're a coach, less clarity about what the rules are. You're like, man, well, 60% of the time I saw the linebacker travel with the motion, but then I saw him bump and it was in the same coverage. I'm not really sure, but that's because you're malleable. So formation and boundary, usually the nickel doesn't travel like Jade Barron, but you don't have to travel if you can bump Makuba down to play nickel because he can be versatile, and then you can just bump Jade Barron back up to safety. That's an example of what I'm talking about. Then the opposing coach on the offensive side is going, I have no idea what the rules of the defense actually are. Now, maybe they could bump that down. Maybe they can travel. You can do both. But when you don't have versatility, you don't have the option to do both. All right. But so this is what I think Sark a couple of things. And I've said this before. First of all, the versatility thing. All right. I've been on that for a while. And I think Sark's headed down the right direction. And that was kind of the key to the reinvention of DBU under Coach Akina. But when you start thinking about the roster construction for Texas, the defensive backs were easily the last phase of roster construction, right? You go look at the latest recruiting class. You had 5 defensive backs in that class. You had Makuba, so that's 6 if you include the transfer portal. That's a lot of DBs you're bringing in. Now, you have lost 8 DBs in the last 2 transfer portal cycles, including 3 starters in that group, and that's a lot of depth, a lot of talented depth to lose. So they're replacing that. But if you go look at that secondary, they really hadn't addressed it until, in terms of talent acquisition cycles, they really hadn't addressed it until last off season, where they really got deep into it, in terms of bringing in a lot more guys. Now they've done it piecemeal, Malik Muhammad and Derek Williams, but now they believe, in terms of the depth and in terms of some of the frontline guys, they have their types of players in there. And it's going to be mostly guys they brought in, and they are talented, but the sum of his parts doesn't always add up, which is why they are 96th in pass defense last season. So I do think you'll get improvement, but I think Sark recognizes, hey man, we just got to constructing the secondary. It's, we haven't given them the resources they need to succeed. Now they have them. And now I think that's why he's really confident that, they're going to have a big year, because everywhere else on the team, every other position group on the team has improved. Quarterback, O-line, running back, wide receiver, tight end, D-line has improved, right? You're talking about the edges this year. Interior D-line was awesome last year. Linebackers got overshown. Jalen Ford got drafted. Linebackers gotten better. Every position on the team has gotten better except the secondary. Think about that. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think Sark has recognized there's only so much you can do in roster construction with the cycles, and he wanted to prioritize offense first, which he did. Got your big humans, got your quarterbacks, got your wide receivers. Prioritize offense. He's an offensive guy. It makes sense. And now they're just getting to the defense. All the defensive prodigies are really young. Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill, Derek Williams, Malik Muhammad. So I think that's why Patrick, he's so optimistic that, no, they're gonna be fine. Because I just gave them the talent they need and the resources they need. They just got it.
No, I think, I don't know how much of it is that he is, so much more focused on the offense that he's not as worried that if he's told this will be fine, this is the plan, this is what we have, that he's not going to be as focused on it, or if it is that he really has spent a lot of time looking through it. The thing you just want to know, do you have a plan B and a plan C? Mm-hmm. Because if you get in to Michigan game and Michigan throws for 300 yards on you, that a team that didn't used to throw and now they throw for 3, and then you go, okay, and then you get into SEC play and people start throwing on you, and you had a whole game plan what you were going to do, and people just start throwing it on you and dominating that way, and it's costing you a couple games. And if you have that, is there a plan B where you can, especially in game change it, but even at, week to week, do you have those plan B and plan C ready to implement, or are you going to be caught behind the 8 ball? That's kind of more what you'd want to know. He's not going to let you in on any of that, because why would he? But I prefer him to have confidence than walk into these meetings and say, hey, donors, we need a lot more money because I got to go out and recruit 3 more DBs or else we're screwed. I prefer him to have confidence and not have to do that, but I'm not 100% sold on it. Just because I've yet to see it. I need to see it first. Like, that's a lot of things with Sark. I need to see, we needed to see him not necessarily just throw the deep ball over and over and over again before we were going to believe that he wasn't just going to throw the deep ball over and over and over again. And so there's some of those things you have to see to believe. So I have to see this secondary really improve before it's not. And I know this is always on the text line too. We all know that if this secondary is bad again, then yes, there will be coaching changes, even though Sark doesn't like to make coaching changes. I think is pretty obvious at this point. If they underperform for a 3rd straight year, that you would say, yeah, okay, we have to do something different. And we can't just, in a season bring in 10 more experienced DBs. So we're going to have to make some changes in the coaching. I think we all know that, but this is their final chance to go basically prove it during this season. They've thought up their approach, and we're going to hope it works.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Sark will have my thing is the contingency plan should be built on the versatility.
Yeah,
you can move pieces around. That if you like what you have at safety and your safeties are stable and Taft is the professor, all right, and you got Derek Williams, then maybe you can move Makuba to nickel and move Jahdae Barron out to corner, or maybe you like Jalen Gilbo, and Jalen Gilbo can be your nickel, and you can move Jahdae Barron out to corner, or maybe, Gavin Holmes does step up, or you get a transfer board. Like, I'm with you. Just give yourself multiple options. That's why they're bringing in, I'll make sure I get the young man's name right here, transfer. I think it's Javion Cole. They're bringing in Javion Cole from San Jose State. Twitchy athlete, had 3 interceptions last season coming out of the Oakland area. and he's coming. From what I heard, my man CJ Vogler on Texas football tell me that he's coming on campus for a visit. That's the only corner that I've heard about that's coming on campus for a visit. They should be bringing in more guys, whether it's the kid from U of H, Isaiah Hamilton, since they got connections there. They obviously Takario Davis deciding to stay at Arizona, but they should be bringing in more corners to give themselves options there too. But then they're going to need some of these young guys to step up. And that's kind of what I was concerned about in the spring game. The young guys didn't play well. I mean, the frontline guys didn't play much, but the young guys didn't play well, and they're young. I mean, they just got here on campus. Some of those guys early enrollees, so it's not that concerning. They'll get better, but some of the same issues that hurt Texas last season in the secondary also showed their ugly faces once again, and they were exposed in the spring game. And it was the deep ball, which they gave up a lot of, defending inside breaking routes, which they weren't great at, and really being able to pass off receivers in zone coverages, on switch releases, being able communicate, be hive minded, communicate that before the snap, but be on the same page post snap, and they didn't do that really well. So it's the spring game. The reason I'm not optimistic is because we'll go with some of these numbers later, but it was the same issues. It was the same issues that we've seen. It's not it's like they didn't get better and didn't work on the key issues that really plagued them last season. Because in the spring game against an offense that you're familiar with, and they didn't do anything sophisticated or fancy, they just threw kind of basic concepts at you, and the guys did not respond well. So could have been the youth, but we'll see if the confidence Sark has in that secondary. We'll see if Longhorn fans have the same confidence once they see him, like as much as he has, because he has seen him in practice last. So maybe in practice they're making more plays than they did in the spring game. All right.